Thank you, Chief, for being here with us this morning. Appreciate your service. As well as I'd like to mention that last summer when we had the memorial service for the 3 firefighters who lost their lives fighting a catastrophic fire in my district, appreciated your support and your being in attendance at that. Recent protests resulting from the arrest of the Hammond family down in Oregon has brought up questions pertaining to federal management of lands in the West. And one of the things that I hear from my people a lot about is the practice of backburning, which, as you know, is a measure to help stop wildfires from spreading. Unfortunately, the prosecution of individuals for performing a backburn is done under an anti-terrorism statute, which to me seems extremely excessive. It carries a I think it's a minimum of 5-year prison term. So I'm very concerned that the federal government is imprisoning people for trying to protect their land and livelihood from these fires, which often spread from public to private lands. I would like to ask you, keeping in mind that the federal government also uses this practice, what is your position on backburning in private land? And what would you, if I could ask you, what would you tell my constituents who need certainty and have to decide whether or not to protect their land during a catastrophic fire, but also have the possibility of facing terrorism charges if they do that?
Well, Congressman, I won't speak to the law that you're referring to that Congress passed. I think it was following the Oklahoma City bombing. But I will refer, as far as the using fire to be able to stop fire, it is a tool that our teams use. It's one that needs to be planned out. It also needs to be one where we have the resources in place to be able to support it so it can be successful. And at times they're somewhat of a last resort, be able to stop it versus where that fire is headed. And so the expertise that we have on our overhead teams, they're able to successfully do this, plus all the fire engines, the air resources they have to be able to hold that fire. It can be a very, very effective tool. For individuals to go out there and try to do that, I don't see how you could possibly be successful without the supporting resources that are in place, and so that's a challenge. What we really want to do is be able to work with communities so that when we do get a fire started, whether it's in your part of the country or other places, we know what we're up against, and so that we're working together with the state resources, the state fire staff, with county fire staff, and so if an action needs to occur on private land to stop the spread of a fire, that it's done in conjunction. Okay. With the majority of our fires in this country, by far the majority are on private land. In fact, the largest, we had more large fires on private land than we do ever have on a national forest.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
This is an issue that goes way beyond just public land.
Let me follow up with a question from our colleague from California. After we've had 2 seasons of devastating catastrophic fires, and some local and tribal leaders have been very frustrated in the response by federal officials, especially in allowing them to rehabilitate their land. Could you tell me what the average approval time is for a salvage logging permit, and how can we improve that process to speed it up?
Well, to get in and do the work that, say, along the roads to provide for public safety and remove the hazard, I used the rim fire. That fire, I think, was done in late in the fall. That following May is when we had our first timber sale. When we're doing a large-scale project like we did on the rim fire and did an EIS, we were able to complete that in about 12 months, which is probably about as fast as we possibly can do to meet the requirements that we have. Probably the better approach is for us to use the categorical exclusions that we have to be able to get in there and treat the areas that really need to be treated, and where there's still a market for the wood, where there's good access. One of the challenges that we found in the past, we've gone to these large efforts to be able to do our restoration and to be able to harvest to salvage more timber, then there's a market for it. And so then when we try to sell it, all of a sudden, there's no market for it. And part of that is just because there's so much timber off of private lands that needs to be removed. So part of what we need to do is to work together with the industry and identify what is really needed, what's available, what are they interested in buying, and then work with the community, go after that and get it done. And I think by some of the work that we're doing in your district, we will be, I think, more effective than we've been in the past.